So I'm going to tell you a bit about our data strategy and how we sort of transforming a really old company, one of the oldest companies here in the Netherlands, um, to work more with data and more freely with data. Um, who am I? I'm Tom Mulder. I'm lead data scientist here at Wehkamp. I have roughly 30 years of experience with anything with computers, from programming up until, I don't know, cloud, now data scientist. Um, I'm also good at woodworking and metalworking and like to cook. So that's just so I don't do only computers. So, um, so uh, what our goal for Wehkamp, we want to sort of enable everybody in the company to work with data where legally allowed, basically. So we make sure that PI data is more secure. But the rest of the data, everybody has their own domain data, which they should be able to use and should be able to build software on or get insights on. So that's what we're trying to achieve within Wehkamp as a sort of a strategy here in the company. Um, so I think most of you know Wehkamp. Should no? Everybody knows Wehkamp from the big magazine that we did way in the past. We actually started with selling mattresses with Herman Wehkamp, which was a bet from his family. He actually started selling mattresses and then combining other products, and then eventually evolved into what now known as Wehkamp. He doesn't own the company anymore, doesn't work here anymore, he doesn't live anymore. We made our first steps around 1995 online. We had a sort of primitive website where you could download the magazine, and we went completely online around 2010. And it was still in a bit sort of big monolithical application which you used to build around that time. And now we finally went mobile first, and we're now sort of targeting experience more and more customer information. So what do we sell? We sell roughly around 400,000 products. We ship 11 million packages and have around half a billion daily customers. So that's sort of the Wehkamp stats. So how did cloud within Wehkamp sort of evolve or start? So a couple of years ago, we started with a project called Blaze, what we called internally. We sort of started by migrating the monolithical application until microservices, until the cloud, give developers access to the cloud, allow developers to start their own infrastructure around the cloud, automate everything in the cloud. And that sort of started the whole landscape. Here you can already see where we sort of started with the whole big data and data transformation. So we had two separate environments here in Wehkamp. We had an existing one, which was the on-premise one, what we used to call Onpremise. And then we had the cloud environment, which tried to innovate and tried to do all new stuff. And that sort of created a problem. So for getting data or doing something with data or building applications on data, and created a sort of bigger problem where all the data was sort of stored in existing systems, and they were stored behind a firewall. So we couldn't access with all the new and cool stuff. We couldn't access the data. So we sort of went into a big transformation. So we came up with a strategy where we said everybody within Wehkamp should be able to access the data from their own domain, and should create their own applications. They own their own data. They produce their own data. So we came up with this strategy. So this was for the first announcement about the strategy for the IT department, and the goal for the IT department for the next coming months was, and next year was to make data available. And they could focus on different parts. They make it real time, are they complete, accurate, and but the core behind the message was availability. Make the data available. Make sure that the data is accessible for people to use within the company. So not behind a firewall, not behind a bunch of passwords, not only accessible by a few, but accessible by the company. So we sort of started with the whole enablement part by looking for people in different departments that wanted the data out, that want to work with data. So basically the beacons within a department. Most companies have somebody within the department that actually wants to transform and wants to move forward. And what we sort of did is help them. We educated the rest of the company. This was one of the first trainings that we did. So we actually gave trainings in Python and in Spark, how to transform data, how to work with data, how to build models on data. And this was actually a data science course that we gave to the whole company, and you can see the different departments that signed up from the whole organization, basically. So you see some products, you see technology, of course. Last sentence are on internal bank. So the whole company actually signed up for the first training. This was with 30 people in the company, as a sort of a way for us to sort of look how people would react on transforming the company, helping. So we actually grew into training people how to give trainings. So now we teach people internally in the company how to train other people in the company as a sort of a way to move forward. And it helps us grow. And plus, another thing is work together. So we sort of did bi-weekly meetings. We talk a lot about data. We talk a lot about to other people about data. Now we do the transformation. We get a lot of input and feedback. And in this case, this is a Slack channel that we have internally. This is about 100 people in the Slack channel being active all around data, on data, and have an opinion about it. So how does it work now? This is roughly how our landscape looks now. So as Harm will explain a bit, so we, from the microservices platform, we're already used to working with Kafka. Our existing software is sort of connected to Kafka, and we deliver stuff into S3 eventually. Microservices also produce data. They're also accessible either through Kafka or dump their data in S3. And we use S3, for example, as a data lake, as they would call it. Databricks in this case, so not sure if anyone knows Databricks. Okay. So Databricks is a platform built on top of Spark by the creators of Spark. And they sort of created an environment, which I will show after this slide, around basically notebooks. So by using notebooks, by describing your own code, you're able to connect to the data, load in data, transform data, or build models on data. And it's a sort of easy way for people to follow and to start learning how to work with data. So, in case of data, so on the right you see an interface for this. Is a screenshot that I created for one of the courses that we give internally. And here you can see. Yeah, that's the mouse. And here you can see, for example, how you can read in some, in this case, from arbitrary data, some baseball data. In this case, it's a CSV, just load it in, and you can display it as basically a data frame or basically sort of a table. And from there on, you can script and code and do anything which you normally would do with any code. The requirement for this is that we actually teach people Python, so give them some basic skills so they can do other cool stuff with it. Plus they can do, but they can also do SQL, they can do R on the platform. They can do, it's originally built in Scala, so if they want to code in Scala, they can do it in Scala even. Not a lot of people do that, sadly, anymore. So it has some interesting stuff. So what Databricks takes care of for us is starting clusters, maintaining clusters. So the whole infrastructure is run on AWS. Basically, it's able to start and do spot bidding for us. So we save a lot of cost, so we can start more clusters, give people a bit more freedom, but still keep costs a bit down. A bit. I'll come back to that later. And it does some stuff on, you can automate stuff with Databricks. You can, it's as easy as starting a cluster by filling in a form and then specifying some metrics that you want to change or add, basically, and then saying how many workers or machines you want, and then you can start your own environment, and then can scale out data on it. Or even simpler, create your own notebook, use an existing cluster. In this case, we already have a couple clusters running by standard. They're just spinned up each day, or if people sort of need them, they're spun up automatically. And then you can use whatever information on the cluster or connected to the data. In this case, I made a screenshot about public non-PI data. I'll show you, because we still need to comply to GDPR. It's like the scary big word. So especially if you talk about data. So in case of GDPR, so we use AWS tools for that. So we use IAM roles basically to restrict access to certain buckets and certain data points. In this case, Databricks integrates nicely with AWS or Azure if you want to use Azure, but I don't know why. You can so basically the data is restricted per person or by KMS. Even you can link it to a specific key or time periods. So we can comply to GDPR and make sure that customer data doesn't leak, which is a thing we don't want. This will work. The whole strategy. So far, and created some metrics today within the company. So the main office, the goal was to train everybody in the main office, which was the initial goal for last year. So far, the main office contains 500 people. So far, we have about 334 accounts on Databricks. People that logged in once. We have about 118 people that are active, starting clusters on a daily basis. I'm not counting the people that connect towards the public non-PI cluster, the existing cluster. And about 500 active jobs that actually are scheduled or running daily basis or hourly basis or whenever they want, or triggered based on something else. As I said, the cost is it's still a bit of a thing. So this sort of strategy also brings in a problem where if you allow people to start machines and give them sort of the freedom to innovate or the freedom to explore, they will start machines. And how we sort of solved it, we have a couple of solutions. One of setting sort of team budgets or budgets on people, which we can do through Databricks. We can determine, we can give them a daily budget for example, 20 virtual DBUs, which is what Databricks use internally. It's a bit derived from the AWS virtual currency. Or what we're already doing is presenting people what their job costs and what their job brings in. So making them cost aware. So this also helps with the complete company strategy to make profit. Make people sort of aware of how they bring in and how they sort of bring in profit for the company. So it also creates sort of commitment. That's my small talk. Any questions?